Welcome back, you night owls. Tonight we're trading the usual lullabies for a journey into the great historical unknowns. You're settling in now, aren't you? Tucked under the covers, the weight of your blanket a gentle anchor. The quiet hum of your room is a perfect soundtrack for what we're about to explore. Stories that whisper from the pages of history, not with answers, but with haunting, tantalizing questions. We're going to walk through the shadows of the past, where the most brilliant minds have searched for centuries and come up empty. You're about to confront mysteries that defy logic, that resist our modern, data-driven world, and that might, just might, make you question if we really know as much as we think we do. You probably won't survive this journey with your certainty intact, so consider yourself warned. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And while you're at it, drop a comment with your location and local time. It's always wild to see where everyone is tuning in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Our first stop is a place of shadows and secrets, a library that exists not in a grand building, but in a single, baffling book. Imagine, if you will, a small leather-bound volume, roughly the size of a modern paperback. Its pages are brittle with age, the parchment smelling faintly of time itself. As you carefully turn the pages, you're greeted not by a familiar language, but by a graceful, flowing script unlike anything you've ever seen. The letters curl and dance across the paper, arranged into words and sentences that hold no meaning to you. It's beautiful, but it's utterly unreadable. This, my friend, is your introduction to the Voynich manuscript. For centuries, this book has been the ultimate historical riddle, a silent challenge laid at the feet of cryptographers, linguists and historians. It's a book of secrets with no known key. You're looking at around 240 pages of text and illustrations, all seemingly from the 15th century. The manuscript is a puzzle box with a lock so complex no one has ever picked it. It's a beautiful, frustrating and utterly compelling piece of history. Now let's peek at the pictures. The illustrations are a category all their own. There are bizarre, fantastical plants that don't match any known species on Earth. You see roots that look like alien appendages and flowers that seem to bloom with otherworldly geometry. It's like a botanical encyclopedia from another planet. Then you turn to the balneological section, a word that basically means the study of baths. Here, you see small nude women, often with strange hats or headdresses, bathing in elaborate interconnected tubs, pipes and pools. It's a surreal, almost dreamlike series of images. There are also astrological charts with zodiac symbols and star maps that seem to track celestial bodies, but in a way that doesn't quite line up with our understanding of medieval astronomy. The script itself is a true marvel of obfuscation. It's written with a specific, organised structure, with defined characters and a consistent writing style. It looks, for all the world, like a real language. Words appear to follow certain rules. Some letters are used more often than others, and specific combinations of letters repeat. But when scholars have tried to apply the standard techniques of cryptanalysis, the same methods used to break wartime codes, they've hit a wall. Every attempt to decipher it, from the top codebreakers of both world wars to modern supercomputers, has failed. The letters don't correspond to any known alphabet, and the word structure doesn't behave like any known natural language. This has led to some pretty wild theories, from it being an elaborate hoax to a lost alien language. The most popular theories still argue whether it is a sophisticated cipher, a synthetic language, or an incredibly complex hoax designed to fool someone into buying it for a high price. One of the quirky tidbits about the manuscript is its journey through history. It's named after Wilfrid Voynich, a Polish book dealer who acquired it in 1912 from a Jesuit college near Rome. But its origins are much older and shrouded in mystery. It's believed to have been owned by Emperor Rudolf II of Bohemia, a man fascinated by alchemists and the occult. He supposedly paid a hefty sum for it, believing it to be the work of the famous English friar, Roger Bacon. Of course, that's almost certainly not true, but it adds to the manuscript's strange, fantastical backstory. The book's provenance is a tangled web of powerful figures, shady dealers, and whispered rumours, all leading back to a book that refuses to give up its secrets. As you consider this silent book, you have to wonder about the person, or people, who created it. What were they trying to say? Were they trying to communicate a secret scientific discovery, a powerful magical ritual, or just creating a piece of art that would amuse and baffle people for centuries. The beautiful, unreadable script is a deliberate act of concealment. The illustrator of the manuscript was clearly talented, with a distinctive style that is both alien and deeply human. You can imagine them sitting in a quiet, candlelit room, carefully drawing each bizarre plant and each tiny bathing woman, knowing that what they were creating was for their eyes only, or for a very select few. And the text, written with a steady hand, was a deliberate barrier, a secret garden locked away from the rest of the world. The very existence of the Voynich manuscript challenges our assumptions about what a book is. A book is meant to be read, to transmit information from one mind to another across time and space. But this one refuses. It's a beautifully crafted object of defiance, a silent monument to an idea we just can't grasp. You could spend a lifetime trying to understand it, and you'd likely end up right back where you started, with your mind full of questions and the pages still unread. It's a book that invites you in with the promise of knowledge, then slams the door shut in your face. It's a humbling reminder that for all our technological advancements, some mysteries are so deeply embedded in the past that they may never be solved. It's a secret meant to be kept, and so far it's doing a spectacular job. The historians' debate rages on, with scholars still arguing whether the Voynich manuscript is a genuine, undecipherable language, a complex cipher, or simply the most elaborate and successful hoax in history. The truth is, we don't know, and we might never know. And as you close the imaginary book and place it back on the shelf, you can't help but feel a little shiver of awe and frustration. A piece of history is right there, in front of you, and it's a language you can't speak. It's a message from the past that you're not meant to hear. It's a feeling that will follow us on our next journey, to a place where an entire colony of people went silent, leaving behind a single, chilling word. You're about to trade the quiet frustration of an unreadable book for the deafening silence of an abandoned settlement. You're still there, aren't you? Your mind is likely still lingering on the Voynich, on those strange plants and indecipherable words, that feeling of a secret just out of reach. Hold on to it. Because now, we're trading the stillness of a musty library for the salty air of the Atlantic coast. You're standing on a small island off the coast of North Carolina, the wind rustling through the gnarled live oaks. The year is 1590. The air is heavy with expectation, but there's a wrongness here, a profound stillness where there should be life. This is Roanoke Island, and you've just arrived to find an entire colony of 115 men, women, and children have simply vanished. This is the story of the lost colony of Roanoke, one of the most enduring mysteries in American history. You were part of a resupply mission, returning to a settlement you had helped establish 3 years earlier. Back then, in 1587, you had left a group of hopeful English settlers here, led by Governor John White. He had sailed back to England for more supplies, but the timing was terrible. England was on the brink of war with Spain, and his return journey was delayed for 3 long years. Now, you're finally back, and what you see is a ghost town. As you step ashore, the first thing you notice is the silence. The cheerful sounds of a bustling settlement, the clang of a blacksmith's hammer, the laughter of children, the chatter of a community are gone. The settlement is deserted. The houses have been dismantled, and the palisade, the protective fence that enclosed the colony, has been carefully taken down. It's not a scene of a chaotic attack or a sudden flight. It's too neat, too deliberate. The only signs of life are the native plants reclaiming the ground where the colonists' vegetable gardens once grew. It's a chilling tableau, a snapshot of a life that stopped but not violently. Your heart sinks as you start to search for clues, for any sign of what happened to the people you knew. You walk through the empty spaces where homes once stood, the sense of absence so strong it's a physical presence. You search for bodies, for signs of a struggle, for anything that could explain this profound emptiness. There's nothing. No bones, no broken tools, no signs of a fight. Just the eerie quiet. Then you see it. On a post near the entrance to the fort, someone has carved a single word, Croatoan, and on a nearby tree, carved at eye level, are the letters CRO. This is the only message left behind. The name Croatoan refers to a nearby island and the friendly Native American tribe who lived there. Governor White had previously instructed the colonists that if they were in trouble and had to leave, they should carve a Maltese cross next to their message. But there is no cross. The absence of this symbol of distress is a small but hugely significant detail. It suggests that they weren't in danger when they left. But where did they go? And why did they leave everything behind? Historians still argue whether the colonists assimilated with local tribes or simply perished. There are a few mainstream theories. The first, and most widely accepted, is that they merged with the Croatoan tribe. The carving of the word Croatoan seems to be a clear indication of their destination. It's possible they sought refuge with their Native American allies after facing shortages of food or other hardships. This theory is supported by later reports from local tribes and even some historical documents that mention fair-skinned, blue-eyed Native Americans in the area. It's a hopeful, if not entirely provable, ending to the story. Another theory, a more grim one, is that they were attacked by a different, less friendly tribe. Perhaps the Croatoan carving was a ruse, or perhaps it was their final act before being overwhelmed. It's a less satisfying explanation, given the lack of any evidence of a struggle, but it's a possibility that can't be dismissed. The peaceful nature of the abandoned settlement is the biggest challenge to this idea. One quirky tidbit adds another layer of intrigue to the mystery. In 2012, archaeologists discovered a copper ring and other artifacts near a site on Hatteras Island, which was once the home of the Croatoan tribe. This discovery, along with historical records and local law, has led many to believe that the colonists truly did integrate with the tribe. It gives a flicker of hope to a story that has been shrouded in darkness for centuries. A light joke in all this dark history? The colonists may have been the first people in America to successfully disappear on purpose, making them pioneers of a very specific kind of ghosting. The lack of an obvious explanation is what makes the Roanoke story so captivating. It's not just a tale of a disappearance, it's a window into the precariousness of early colonial life. You're trying to build a new world from scratch, thousands of miles from home, with very little support. You have to rely on the kindness of strangers, and you're at the mercy of the elements. In the end, the colony may have simply failed due to a combination of these pressures. Think about the sheer audacity of it all. You're a colonist from England. You've crossed a vast ocean, and you're trying to build a new life. You've brought all your hopes and dreams with you. You've brought your families. And then, for some unknown reason, you have to pack up and leave everything behind. What could have driven them to do that? Famine? A plague? The threat of an attack? We may never know. The story of Roanoke isn't just about what happened to those 115 people. It's about what their disappearance represents. The fragility of human endeavour, the silent ways in which the past can swallow up our stories, and the enduring power of a mystery that refuses to be solved. You can almost feel the presence of those lost souls here on this island, their ghost-like footprints on the sand. You can almost hear the whispered conversations of a colony facing an impossible decision. They left a single word behind, a clue that only deepened the puzzle. So you stand on this deserted shore, the wind whistling past your ears, the word Croatoan echoing in your mind. It's a testament to the unknown, a story with a beginning but no end. It's a reminder that some of history's greatest tales aren't grand sagas of triumph or tragedy, but quiet, inexplicable moments of absence. We've gone from a book that hides its secrets in plain sight to an entire community that vanished, leaving behind a clue that only raises more questions. What's next? A device so far ahead of its time it's practically magic. Get ready to sail with me to a sunken ship off the coast of a Greek island, where a barnacle-covered box holds a secret that will change our understanding of ancient technology. The salt spray from Roanoke's deserted shores still clings to your clothes as we drift east, across the expanse of time and ocean. The ghost of a whisper, Croatoan, fades behind us, replaced by the gentle lapping of waves against the hull of a ship. It's the year 1901, and you're with a team of sponge divers exploring a shipwreck off the coast of the Greek island of Antikythera. The water is impossibly clear, a brilliant sapphire that gives way to the deep, silent green of the seabed. And there, at 140 feet, lies the wreck of a Roman cargo ship, a vessel that sank over 2,000 years ago. This isn't just any shipwreck. As you explore the wreckage, you find a treasure trove of artifacts, marble and bronze statues, pottery and jewellery. But then one of the divers brings up something far stranger, something that looks like nothing else on the sea floor. It's a lump of corroded bronze and wood, encrusted with centuries of barnacles and sea growth. It's about the size of a shoebox, and it's a mess of interlocking gears, dials and plates. It's an artifact so out of place, so anachronistic, it looks like something from a different time altogether. This, my friend, is your first look at the Antikythera mechanism. At first glance, it was dismissed as an unusual piece of Roman debris, maybe some kind of decorative clock or a navigational instrument. But when it was X-rayed decades later, the real shock was revealed. The device was not one simple piece of junk, but an incredibly complex system of at least 30 intricately meshed bronze gears. These weren't just any gears. They were cut with astonishing precision, some with teeth as small as a millimetre. The sheer sophistication of the gear train was unlike anything else from the ancient world. It was a marvel of microengineering. Think about what we're talking about here. This device, dating from around the 2nd century BC, is a gear-driven computer. It was designed to predict astronomical positions and eclipses for calendar and astrological purposes. The front dial tracked the sun and moon against the zodiac and a specific Egyptian calendar. The back dials were even more complex, tracing the cycles of the moon and a Greek athletic competition cycle, which included the Olympic Games. It's like a mechanical Google Calendar for the ancient Greeks. You can imagine the person who owned this thing showing it off at a party. Oh, you want to know when the next eclipse is? And also when the next Olympics start? Let me just turn this dial for you. It's a little bit of ancient flex, a quirky tidbit of history that shows the human need to show off is timeless. For centuries, the earliest known complex geared device was thought to be from the 14th century, a clock-like machine. But here, found in a shipwreck from 2 millennia ago, was a device 1,000 years older, with a level of complexity that wasn't seen again until the Renaissance. It completely rewrites the history of technology. It's a bit like finding a laptop in a Viking longship. It makes you wonder what else the ancient Greeks were capable of. Did they have a whole range of these devices? Was this a one-off genius invention, or part of a more widespread technological tradition that simply didn't survive? The person who made it remains a mystery, although some scholars have theorized it could be Archimedes or one of his pupils, given the sophistication and the time frame. We have written records from ancient figures like Cicero mentioning a similar device, a sphere of Archimedes, which could predict the movements of the celestial bodies. But to actually find a physical object, a real working device, is a whole other thing. It's the difference between hearing a rumour about a dragon and actually finding a dragon skeleton. The debate among historians and scientists still argues whether the Antikythera mechanism was a unique invention, or if it represents a lost tradition of Hellenistic engineering. The complexity suggests it wasn't built in a vacuum. The existence of so many gears implies the maker had a deep understanding of epicyclic gearing, and was likely drawing on a body of knowledge that has since been lost. It's a sobering thought, isn't it? That an entire branch of scientific and mechanical knowledge could simply disappear from the historical record, only to be rediscovered by a lucky team of divers. Imagine the work that went into creating it. Someone, probably a skilled craftsman working alongside an astronomer, had to design and meticulously cut each gear by hand. The bronze plates had to be inscribed with tiny, perfect Greek lettering describing the various cycles. It's a monument to ancient ingenuity, patience, and a deep intellectual curiosity about the cosmos. It's a testament to the idea that the ancient world was far more sophisticated than we often give it credit for. We're used to thinking of ancient civilizations in terms of pyramids and temples, of things built on a grand scale. The Antikythera mechanism reminds us that they were also capable of incredible delicacy and complexity, of things that fit in the palm of your hand and contain the entire known universe. A light joke here, you could say the ancient Greeks were so far ahead of their time, they were essentially waiting for the rest of us to catch up. The mechanism itself is now in pieces, carefully preserved in a museum. But thanks to modern imaging and computer models, we have a pretty good idea of how it worked. Scientists have even been able to reconstruct a working replica, which is a mind-bending feat in itself. But even with all of our technology, we can only marvel at the craftsmanship of the original. The thought of this device slowly sinking to the bottom of the sea, its complex gears slowly grinding to a halt, is a haunting one. It was a piece of knowledge, a triumph of human intellect, that was lost for 2 millennia, waiting silently on the seafloor for someone to find it. So you're left with a sense of wonder and a lot of questions. How many more devices like this are out there, waiting to be found? What other technological secrets lie buried beneath the sands of time? The Antikythera mechanism is a stark reminder that our understanding of the past is not complete. It's a tantalising peek behind the curtain of history, a glimpse of a world that was in some ways much more advanced than we previously imagined. It's a mystery that has less to do with who did it, and more with how they did it, and what else they knew. And now, as the sun sets over the Aegean Sea, we're going to leave this ancient piece of engineering behind and fly into another kind of sky, a modern one. We're going to search for a woman who vanished in the vast, unforgiving expanse of the Pacific, leaving behind a legacy of courage and a puzzle that has haunted the world for nearly a century. The whirring of the Antikythera mechanism's invisible gears fades into the background, replaced now by the rhythmic drone of a piston engine. We've traded ancient seas for the vast, endless sky of the 20th century. You're now a passenger in the cockpit of a twin-engine Lockheed Electra 10E, a silver bird of a plane, its wings cutting a path through the humid air of the equatorial Pacific. It's July 2nd, 1937, and you're flying with one of the most famous women in the world, a pioneer of aviation with a bobbed haircut and a confident smile. Her name is Amelia Earhart. Your journey is the most ambitious leg of an attempt to circumnavigate the globe at its widest point, a monumental feat of endurance and navigation. The destination is Howland Island, a tiny remote speck of land in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. The island is little more than a coral atoll, a mere 2 miles long, and it's your next refuelling stop. The only problem? It's also incredibly easy to miss. And as the hours tick by, a chilling realization begins to dawn on you. Something is wrong. The radio crackles with static, but you can hear the pilot's voice, calm at first, then laced with a growing urgency. The ground station on Howland Island is a US Coast Guard cutter, the Itasca, and they're trying to guide the plane in. You hear the back and forth, the frantic search for a radio signal that's getting weaker and weaker. You hear the name of the navigator, Fred Noonan, a man with a reputation for being one of the best in the business. But even the best can't fight the relentless tyranny of distance and the subtle, cruel drift of the sea. They're lost. The final, chilling transmissions from Earhart's plane are a matter of public record. You hear her saying she can't see the island and that she's running low on fuel. The final message is a series of broken sentences, a garbled plea for help. We are on the line 157337. We'll repeat this message. We are running on north and south. And then, silence. An entire plane, with two of the most celebrated figures in aviation history, simply vanished into thin air, somewhere over an area of the ocean so vast it makes the rest of the world look small. The disappearance of Amelia Earhart is a mystery that has captivated the public imagination for generations. It's a story with all the elements of a classic tragedy. Courage, ambition, and an unknown fate. But what actually happened to her and Fred Noonan? This is where the story branches into a multitude of theories, ranging from the plausible to the utterly fantastical. The mainstream historical fact is that the US government launched a massive and unprecedented search effort, covering 250,000 square miles of ocean. It was the most expensive and extensive search in naval history up to that point. They found nothing. No wreckage, no oil slick, no life rafts. It was as if the plane had been swallowed whole by the sea. This official conclusion, that the plane simply ran out of fuel and crashed, sinking to the bottom of the ocean, is the most sober and logical explanation. It's a sad but simple end to an incredible story. But for many people it's not enough. They want a narrative that explains the total lack of evidence. And this is where the quirky and fringe theories come in. One of the most compelling and popular alternatives is the Gardner Island theory, championed by the International Group for Historic Aircraft Recovery, TIGHAR. Their research suggests that Earhart and Noonan didn't crash and sink, but instead made a successful but rough landing on what is now known as Nikomororo Island, a remote, uninhabited atoll. The theory goes that they survived for a time, living as castaways, sending out radio signals before the plane was washed away, and they eventually perished. The evidence for this includes bone fragments, artifacts, and even a jar of freckle cream from the 1930s found on the island, all of which point to a possible, if tragic, survival story. Another theory, one that's a little more far-fetched and sounds like a spy novel, is that Earhart was secretly on a mission for the US government, flying over Japanese-controlled territory to gather intelligence. The theory suggests they were either shot down or captured, and that their disappearance was covered up by the US government to avoid a diplomatic incident. This theory is a favourite of conspiracy theorists, but there is very little hard evidence to support it. A light joke in all this? Maybe the real mystery is how she managed to get a freckle cream jar from the 1930s to stay intact for so long on a remote island. The durability of mid-century beauty products is a true marvel. The scholarly debate still revolves around whether Earhart's disappearance was a simple tragedy of a navigational error, or if there's a more complex, still hidden story at play. Historians argue whether the Gardner Island theory is supported by enough credible evidence to be considered a likely scenario. They pore over grainy radio transcripts, weather reports, and satellite images, trying to find a clue that everyone else has missed. The fact that the most expensive search in history yielded nothing, and yet a group of private researchers can find compelling artifacts, is a testament to both the vastness of the ocean and the power of dedicated research. Imagine the final moments of that flight. The low hum of the engines, the sound of the ocean waves thousands of feet below, the growing sense of dread as the fuel gauges drop and drop. You're in the hands of a navigator you trust, but the world is just too big, and your tiny island target is just too small. You're a legend, a hero, a symbol of hope and progress for women everywhere, and your final moments are spent in a radio transmission that no one can hear clearly. It's a story that feels almost too poignant to be true, a human drama of the highest order. As you reflect on Amelia Earhart's final flight, you're not just thinking about a plane crash, you're thinking about the human cost of exploration, the fine line between courage and hubris, and the way some people can simply disappear from the face of the earth, leaving behind a void that can never be filled. She was a woman who was larger than life, and her disappearance has only made her more so. Her story is a reminder that some of history's greatest mysteries aren't about ancient secrets or forgotten technology, but about the very human act of leaving a legacy that no one can quite finish. And with that, we're going to trade the endless sky for another ghost story, another abandoned vessel, and another group of people who simply disappeared. The drone of the Lockheed's engines is replaced by the silent creak of a ship's timbers as we sail into the story of the Mary Celeste, a vessel found drifting on the open ocean with its crew gone, its cargo untouched, and a lingering sense of dread hanging in the air. The vast silence of the Pacific, where Amelia Earhart's plane once flew, gives way to the heaving grey swells of the Atlantic. You're no longer in a sleek modern aircraft, but standing on the deck of a humble, two-masted brigantine. The year is 1872. The air is cold and damp, and you've just spotted something peculiar on the horizon. A ship. It's sailing erratically. Its sails set, but its movements unpredictable. There's a strange stillness about it. As you get closer, you see its name emblazoned on the bow, the Mary Celeste. This is where one of the most famous maritime ghost stories begins. You're part of the crew of the Dei Gratia, a ship whose captain, David Morehouse, knows the Mary Celeste's captain, Benjamin Briggs. They are friends. As your ship pulls alongside the errant vessel, a boarding party is sent to investigate. You're on that party. You clamber aboard, and the first thing you notice is the profound quiet. There's no one on deck. The ship is eerily silent, a ghost ship floating on the open sea. As you begin to explore, the mystery deepens. The ship is in surprisingly good shape. There's no sign of a struggle, no blood, no chaos. Below deck, the cargo of 1,701 barrels of denatured alcohol is all present and accounted for. The provisions, the personal belongings of the crew, it's all there. There's a half-eaten meal on the table, a cup of tea still sitting out, a sewing machine with a half-finished project. It's a snapshot of a life that was suddenly, inexplicably interrupted. But some things are missing. The captain's logbook is gone, along with a few personal possessions, a lifeboat and a chronometer, a highly accurate clock used for navigation. It's a strange and contradictory scene, a ship that was abandoned in a hurry, yet its valuable cargo was left untouched. A crew that disappeared, but left no sign of a struggle. This is the enduring puzzle of the Mary Celeste. The crew of the Mary Celeste included Captain Briggs, his wife, his young daughter, and 7 crew members. 10 people in total, all vanished without a trace. The mainstream historical fact is that the ship was found on December 4th, 1872, approximately 400 miles east of the Azores. It was a well-documented and highly publicised event, leading to an inquiry in Gibraltar but couldn't come to a definitive conclusion. The British authorities, as is their way, were incredibly suspicious and considered the possibility of mutiny or a conspiracy to commit insurance fraud. But they found no evidence to support these theories. The ship was sold at a profit by its salvors, the crew of the day greater, but the mystery of what happened to the people on board remained. Now, let's dive into some of the theories. The most plausible and widely accepted explanation is a natural disaster of some kind. Perhaps there was a sudden storm or a rogue wave that hit the ship, leading the captain to make the difficult decision to abandon the vessel in the belief that it was sinking. The absence of the lifeboat and the chronometer suggests a planned, albeit panicked, departure. A quirky tidbit that adds to this theory: the cargo, the denatured alcohol, could have started to leak. Fumes could have filled the hold, leading the captain to fear an explosion. He might have ordered everyone into the lifeboat to wait for the danger to pass, only to be separated from the Mary Celeste by a sudden squall. It's a tragic but not entirely impossible scenario. Another, more sensational theory suggests a mutiny. But why would the mutineers leave the valuable cargo and most of the ship's possessions behind? And why would they leave the ship itself, which was in perfectly good condition? The lack of any signs of violence or struggle on board makes this theory highly unlikely. It's a great plot for a novel, but not a very good fit for the facts. And then there are the truly fringe theories. We're talking sea monsters, alien abduction, or a sudden, unexpected wormhole. These stories, while entertaining, have absolutely no basis in fact. They're a testament to the power of a good mystery to spark the imagination. A light joke in all this dark history. The crew of the Mary Celeste may have been the most polite ghost crew in history, leaving a half-finished meal and a perfectly tidy ship behind. They were just so considerate. The great scholarly debate still argues whether the crew of the Mary Celeste abandoned their ship due to a genuine fear of imminent peril, or if the events were the result of a more complex and still unknown sequence of events. The fact that the ship itself was largely undamaged and its cargo untouched is the most frustrating part of the puzzle. It completely upends the narrative of a ship in distress. The Mary Celeste was not a wreck. It was just empty. Imagine the final moments on that ship. Captain Briggs, a respectable man with his family on board. The crew, all experienced sailors. They must have seen something, felt something, that made them believe their lives were in immediate danger. The fear must have been palpable. The rush to get into the lifeboat. The hope that they would be able to get back to their ship once the danger had passed. And then the ocean, with its relentless power, simply swallowed them whole. It's a sobering thought, a reminder that even the most advanced technology of the day, a sturdy ship, a chronometer, a logbook, was no match for the raw power of nature. The story of the Mary Celeste is a testament to the power of the unknown. It's a maritime version of the Roanoke colony mystery, where people simply disappear, leaving behind a scene that is both haunting and utterly baffling. It's a story that has been told and retold, twisted and exaggerated for over 150 years, and still, we have no definitive answer. It's a silent wooden testament to the things that happen in the world that we simply can't explain. And with that, we're going to leave the silent deck of the Mary Celeste and head to an even more notorious stretch of water, one that has become a symbol for all things unexplained. We're going to fly over the Bermuda Triangle, a place where ships and planes like Amelia Earhart's are said to vanish with a frequency that defies all logic. Get ready for a journey into the world of folklore, science, and a little bit of fear. The creaking of the Mary Celeste's timbers fades away as we soar into the air once more. But this time, the drone of the engines is heavy with a sense of dread. We're flying over a specific triangular patch of the Atlantic Ocean, a vast area stretching from Miami to Bermuda to Puerto Rico. This is the Bermuda Triangle, and its name alone is enough to conjure images of vanishing ships and planes, and stories that defy explanation. You're a passenger in a modern jet, looking down at the shimmering turquoise water below, but your mind is filled with the stories of what's supposed to have happened here. You've heard the legends, ships found abandoned, their crews vanished, planes disappearing from radar screens without a single distress call. This is a place where the laws of physics are rumoured to bend, where compasses spin wildly, and where the line between fact and folklore is a little blurry. The mainstream historical fact is that the Bermuda Triangle, as a concept, is a relatively recent invention. The name was first coined in 1964 by a writer named Vincent Gaddis in a pulp magazine article. He sensationalized a series of disappearances, weaving them into a narrative of supernatural forces. While there have been a number of documented and tragic disappearances in this area, the claim that they happen with a greater frequency than anywhere else in the world is largely a myth. This is one of those cases where a good story has been repeated so many times that it has become its own kind of truth. The number of ships and planes that traverse this area daily is enormous. It's one of the busiest shipping lanes and flight paths in the world. It stands to reason that a large number of vessels and aircraft would be lost here over the centuries, but the statistical evidence doesn't support the idea of a uniquely dangerous zone. As any good historian will tell you, correlation is not causation, but for the sake of our story, we'll pretend for a moment that the legends are true, and we'll look at some of the most famous disappearances. Perhaps the most iconic is the loss of Flight 19, a squadron of 5 US Navy TBM Avenger torpedo bombers. You can almost hear the radio transmissions as you fly over the spot where they were last seen on December 5th, 1945. The flight leader, a veteran pilot, reported that his compasses were malfunctioning. He sounded disoriented, confused. The conversations were filled with uncertainty and a growing sense of panic. "Everything is wrong," he reported. "I don't know where we are. We must have been 225 miles northeast of our base." The last words were, "We are in the clear white water. We are lost." Then, silence. To add to the mystery, a search plane, a Martin Mariner flying boat, was sent to find them, and it too disappeared. The official report said the plane likely exploded, but the mystery of Flight 19 and the search plane has never been fully resolved. Another famous disappearance is the cargo ship USS Cyclops in 1918. It was a massive naval collier with a crew of 306 men, and it vanished with its cargo of manganese ore somewhere between Barbados and Baltimore. The ship never sent a distress call. No wreckage was ever found. Its disappearance remains the single largest loss of life in US Navy history outside of combat. It's a baffling loss, a gigantic ship with a huge crew, simply gone. So what are the quirky and fringe theories that attempt to explain these vanishing acts? One of the most popular is the idea of methane hydrates. This theory suggests that the seabed in the area contains vast deposits of methane gas trapped in a solid, ice-like form. If a shift in the sea floor or some other seismic event were to release this gas, it would create giant bubbles that would reduce the density of the water. A ship sailing into this area would lose its buoyancy and sink instantly, as if it had sailed into a hole in the ocean. For planes, the theory suggests the methane could rise into the atmosphere and cause engine stalls. It's a scientifically plausible, if unproven, explanation that offers a natural, rather than supernatural, answer to the disappearances. Another, more outlandish theory is that the area is home to a lost city of Atlantis, and the energy from its crystal technology is interfering with modern navigation, or that a time warp is pulling ships and planes into another dimension. A light joke here, maybe the Bermuda Triangle is just the universe's most effective spam filter for poorly maintained ships and planes. The scholarly debate on the Bermuda Triangle is less about the existence of a mystery, and more about the historical inaccuracies that have been used to create it. Historians and scientists still argue whether the stories of the Bermuda Triangle are a product of sensationalized journalism and bad historical research, or if there is a kernel of truth to the legends. The fact is, many of the disappearances attributed to the triangle occurred outside its boundaries. The weather in this area is also notoriously unpredictable, with hurricanes and sudden storms being a common occurrence. This, combined with the fact that many ships and planes in the past had less reliable equipment, could account for many of the losses. Imagine being on Flight 19, your compass needle spinning wildly, the pilot's voice filled with a desperate confusion. You're surrounded by the endless, empty expanse of the sea, and your one reliable guide, the magnetic compass, has failed. The sun is setting, and you know, with a chilling certainty, that you're lost. It's a feeling of profound isolation and helplessness that is hard to shake. It's a reminder that no matter how advanced we become, we are still at the mercy of the elements. The Bermuda Triangle is a symbol of our collective fear of the unknown, a modern myth that serves as a cautionary tale. It's a place where we've projected all of our anxieties about technology, nature, and the limits of our knowledge. It's a phantom mystery, a puzzle box that, when you open it, is mostly empty, but for the lingering feeling of dread that the stories have left behind. As the hum of the jet engine settles into a steady rhythm, we're going to leave this turbulent patch of ocean behind and travel backward in time to a place of ancient stones and silent ceremonies. We're going to walk among the towering monoliths of Stonehenge and try to understand how and why a prehistoric people built such a monumental and mysterious structure. The turbulence of the Bermuda Triangle recedes, and the roar of the jet engines gives way to the ancient whisper of the wind sweeping across a vast green plain. You're standing now on Salisbury Plain in Wiltshire, England, and the year is roughly 2500 BCE. Before you, a silhouette of towering stones is etched against the dramatic sky. This is Stonehenge, and its silent grandeur is overwhelming. You walk among the massive stones, your hand brushing against the rough, lichen-covered sarsen and bluestones. The sheer scale of the operation is breathtaking. These stones, some weighing up to 50 tons, have been moved and meticulously placed into a perfect circular formation. You can feel the weight of history here, the countless hands that laboured, the minds that planned, the faith that drove a civilization to create this monumental work. But as you look around, a profound question hangs in the air. Why? The mainstream historical fact is that Stonehenge was constructed in several phases, a project that spanned thousands of years. The first phase, around 3100 BCE, involved the creation of a circular earthwork enclosure. The iconic stone circle we see today was built much later, between 2500 and 2000 BCE. The larger sarsen stones were brought from a quarry about 20 miles away, but the smaller bluestones came from much farther, from the Preseli Hills in Wales, over 150 miles away. This is a journey that would have been a monumental undertaking for a prehistoric people with no metal tools or wheels. The effort involved in moving these stones by hand and with primitive technology boggles the mind. The purpose of Stonehenge is still one of the greatest open questions in archaeology. We know it was a sacred site, but what kind of sacred site? One of the most famous and widely accepted theories is that it served as an astronomical calendar or observatory. The entire structure is aligned with the solstices. On the summer solstice, the sun rises precisely over the heelstone, its rays shining directly into the centre of the monument. On the winter solstice, the sun sets in a perfectly aligned position. It's an incredible feat of engineering and observation for a people who we often imagine as primitive. This alignment suggests a deep understanding of the cosmos and a culture that was keenly attuned to the cycles of the sun and seasons. Another theory, a quirky tidbit from fringe archaeology, suggests that Stonehenge was a healing centre. The bluestones from Wales were believed to have magical or medicinal properties. There's a theory that people travelled from all over ancient Britain to visit the site, seeking cures for their ailments. Excavations have revealed a number of burials with evidence of injuries and diseases, which some researchers believe points to the site's use as a place of pilgrimage for the sick. It's an interesting idea that reframes the purpose of the monument from a purely astronomical one to a more personal, spiritual one. The scholarly debate still argues whether Stonehenge was primarily a place of burial, a ceremonial temple, an astronomical observatory, or some combination of all three. The presence of numerous burials, particularly cremated remains dating from the monument's earliest phase, suggests a strong connection to death and the ancestors. But the astronomical alignments are too precise to be accidental. It's possible that the function of Stonehenge changed over the centuries, evolving from a place of burial to a solar temple and beyond. The fact that the debate is still ongoing, with new theories and evidence emerging all the time, is a testament to the enduring mystery of the site. Imagine the work that went into building it. You're part of a community, a small village of people who spend their lives on this one project. You're dragging stones on sledges, using ropes made of animal hides, rolling them on logs, all while watching the position of the sun and stars, making sure every stone is perfectly aligned. It's an act of faith, a community project that spanned generations. You would never see the finished product yourself, but you would know that you were a part of something that would stand for 1,000 years. A light joke in all this dark history? The builders of Stonehenge must have had a truly impressive project manager, given how long it took and the fact that they never missed a deadline. The acoustic properties of the stones are another fascinating and still debated aspect of the monument. Some studies suggest that the bluestones have unique sound-producing qualities, and that the circular formation of the monument might have been designed to create a specific acoustic experience. It's possible that ceremonies held at the site involved sound and music, and that the monument was designed to amplify those sounds. It's a tantalising thought that Stonehenge might not just have been a visual spectacle, but an auditory one as well. As you stand in the centre of the stone circle, you can almost hear the echoes of the past, the chants, the ceremonies, the sound of the wind whipping around the stones. It's a place that was built for a reason that was so important to a people that they were willing to move mountains, quite literally, to create it. It's a silent message from a long-gone civilization, a message we're still trying to translate. We've moved from the quiet, isolated mysteries of a single book and a ghost ship to the vast communal mystery of a monument that a whole society built. The unanswered questions of Stonehenge are a testament to the fact that we can often see the evidence of a civilization's greatest works, but we can't always understand the human motivations behind them. The meaning is lost to time, and all we have left is the silent, imposing structure itself. And with that, we're going to leave this ancient plain and travel to the dark, foggy streets of Victorian London, where a different kind of mystery, a more terrifying one, is about to begin. The silent grandeur of Stonehenge's ancient stones gives way to the chaotic clamour of Victorian London. The air is no longer clean and fresh. It's thick with coal smoke, the stench of industrial waste, and the damp smell of poverty. You're walking on cobbled streets under the eerie glow of gas lamps, and a cold fog snakes through the alleyways. The year's 1888, and a profound sense of dread hangs over the East End. You're in the midst of a murder spree that would captivate and terrify the world, committed by a man who would become history's most infamous serial killer, Jack the Ripper. You are a citizen of London, and every day brings a new wave of fear. The headlines scream about the latest victim, a prostitute from the slums of Whitechapel. The details are gruesome, the attacks savage. There is a sense of powerlessness, a feeling that a monster walks among you and no one, not the police, not the Queen, can stop him. It's a mystery that is unfolding in real time, and you, along with millions of others, are desperate for an answer. The mainstream historical fact is that Jack the Ripper is believed to have killed at least 5 women, known as the Canonical Five, all of whom were prostitutes in Whitechapel. Their names were Mary Ann Nichols, Annie Chapman, Elizabeth Stride, Catherine Eddowes, and Mary Jane Kelly. The murders occurred between August and November of 1888. The killer earned his moniker from a letter sent to the Central News Agency, signed Jack the Ripper, which claimed responsibility for the murders. This letter, along with several others, may have been a hoax, but the name stuck, becoming synonymous with the brutal unsolved crimes. The investigation was a mess of competing theories, inadequate forensic science, and a media frenzy that only complicated matters. The police had no DNA evidence, no CCTV, no modern tools to help them. They had to rely on eyewitness accounts, which were often unreliable, and on physical clues that were misinterpreted or lost. The medical examiners in particular noted the killer's surgical skill in some of the later murders, leading to the theory that he may have been a doctor or a butcher. It's a chilling thought that a person with a YA degree of professional training could use their skills for such a horrific purpose. The sheer number of suspects is a testament to the fact that the police had very little to go on. There were hundreds of suspects, but no solid evidence ever pointed to a single person. This is where the quirky and fringe tidbits come in. There were theories that he was a member of the royal family, a doctor named Sir William Gull covering up a royal scandal. There was the theory that he was an artist, Walter Sickert, who painted gruesome scenes of the East End. One of the more bizarre theories, a light joke in this dark narrative, is that he was a woman, a midwife named Mary Piercy, who dressed up as a man to commit the crimes. This Jill the Ripper theory, while entertaining, has no more evidence to support it than any of the others, but it does show the depth of the public's desire to find an answer, any answer. The great scholarly debate still argues whether the Ripper murders were the work of a single killer, or if they were committed by multiple people. The lack of a clear motive, the varying nature of the injuries in some of the victims, and the fact that the attacks stopped just as suddenly as they started, all contribute to this debate. The identity of Jack the Ripper remains a mystery, a historical puzzle box that has been opened and examined countless times but has never been solved. You're a detective in this story, walking the same streets as the killer, your mind filled with the same questions that plagued the London police. Who was he? Why did he target these specific women? Did he act alone, or was he part of a larger conspiracy? You look at the dark, narrow alleys, the gas lamps casting long, dancing shadows, and you can almost feel his presence. The fear is a palpable thing, a heavy blanket that covers the city. The legacy of Jack the Ripper is not just in the crimes he committed, but in the mystery he left behind. He became a symbol of urban dread, a boogeyman that haunted the collective imagination for generations. He's a reminder that sometimes the most terrifying monsters are the ones we can't see, the ones that blend in with the crowd, the ones that we may have passed on the street without a second glance. His story is a testament to the fact that not all historical mysteries are about lost civilizations or ancient technologies. Some are about the dark, terrifying corners of the human psyche. The hunt for Jack the Ripper has been going on for over a century, and the amount of resources that have been poured into it is staggering. There are countless books, documentaries, and websites dedicated to the case. Everyone has a theory, a favourite suspect, a piece of evidence they believe holds the key. But in the end, it all comes back to the same place. A series of unsolved murders in a foggy city, a name scrawled in a letter, and a killer who disappeared into the shadows, never to be seen again. And as the fog of London swirls around you, obscuring the truth, we're going to leave this grim and terrifying place. We're going to travel to a place that is just as isolated, but in a very different way. A vast empty forest in Siberia. We're going to investigate a catastrophic event that flattened millions of trees but left no impact crater, a mystery that is as big as the sky itself. The grim silence of Jack the Ripper's victims is about to be replaced by the deafening sound of an explosion that no one saw, but whose effects are still visible today. The claustrophobic fog of Victorian London dissipates, replaced by the crisp, biting air of Siberia. The year is 1908, and the silence here is not the foreboding quiet of a crime scene, but the vast, empty hush of a landscape untouched by civilization. You're in a remote forest near the Podkamanaya Tunguska River, a place of endless taiga and permafrost. The indigenous Evenki people call this place home, and they are the first to tell you the story of what happened here. It's June 30th, just after 7 a.m. The sky is bright and clear. Suddenly, a deafening explosion rips through the air, so powerful it's heard for hundreds of miles. A brilliant white light flashes across the sky, a searing column of fire that is brighter than the sun. The ground shakes, a seismic event so strong it's registered on seismographs across Europe. And then there is the wind, a catastrophic gale that flattens trees for miles in every direction. This is the Tunguska event, and you're standing in the middle of its aftermath. You walk through a forest of downed trees, an area of over 770 square miles, roughly the size of a modern city. The trees are not burnt but stripped of their branches and leaves, their trunks all pointing away from a central point. It looks like a giant invisible hand has swept across the landscape, pushing everything down with an unimaginable force. It's a scene of perfect symmetrical devastation. But as you get closer to the centre of the blast, you notice something strange. There is no crater. No fragments of a meteorite, no evidence of an impact. It's an explosion without a bomb, a meteor strike without a meteor. The mainstream historical fact is that the Tunguska event was most likely caused by a massive cosmic body, an asteroid or a comet, that exploded in the atmosphere a few miles above the ground. The prevailing theory is that it was a rocky asteroid, about the size of a skyscraper. It entered the Earth's atmosphere, and the immense pressure and heat caused it to explode before it hit the ground. The explosion released the energy equivalent of a 15-megaton nuclear bomb, an event so powerful it would have levelled a modern city. The shockwave and heat from this airburst is what caused the devastation. The trees were flattened by the force of the blast, and the heat from the explosion was so intense it caused an enormous fire, but the lack of a crater is a key piece of evidence that points to an airburst rather than a ground impact. The remoteness of the location and the political turmoil of the time meant that a proper scientific investigation didn't happen until a decade later, in 1921. It was an expedition led by Leonid Kulik, a Russian mineralogist, who was the first to explore the site and to document the strange pattern of flattened trees. It was his work that brought the Tunguska event to the attention of the scientific community, and it was his frustration at the lack of a crater that sparked decades of speculation. The quirky tidbits and fringe theories surrounding the Tunguska event are a whole other story. Because there was no crater and no physical evidence of an impact, some people have suggested that the explosion was caused by something else entirely. One of the more popular theories is that it was a black hole, a tiny primordial black hole that passed through the Earth and exited somewhere else. Another theory, one that sounds like it came straight out of a science fiction novel, is that it was an alien spacecraft that exploded in the atmosphere, either by accident or as a deliberate act of self-destruction. A light joke in all this dark history. The aliens, if they were real, must have had some truly terrible aim, choosing the only spot on Earth where no one would notice them. Or perhaps they were the world's most considerate aliens, exploding over an unpopulated area so as to not harm anyone. The scholarly debate still argues whether the object was a comet or an asteroid. A comet is made of ice and dust, and would have completely disintegrated in the atmosphere, leaving no trace. An asteroid, made of rock, would have left at least some dust and debris behind. In the years following the event, scientists have searched for this debris, and some have claimed to have found microscopic glass spheres in the soil, which they believe are the remnants of the asteroid. But this evidence is still inconclusive, and the debate rages on. Imagine the perspective of the people who actually saw the event. An Evenki man standing outside his small hut sees a flash of light that turns the night sky into day. The ground he stands on, the land he has known his whole life, shakes and trembles. He hears a sound so loud it deafens him. It's an event that defies all explanation, a true act of God. It's an event that would have changed the course of history if it had happened over a major city. But instead, it happened in the middle of nowhere, a cosmic near miss that still serves as a chilling reminder of how vulnerable we are to the whims of the universe. The Tunguska event is not just a mystery, it's a warning. It's a testament to the fact that the greatest threats to our planet may not be man-made, but cosmic. It's a reminder that the universe is a big, chaotic place, and we are just a small, fragile part of it. The questions it raises are not just about what happened on that day in 1908, but about what could happen tomorrow. The silence of the Siberian forest, the perfectly symmetrical pattern of flattened trees, and the lack of a simple answer all serve as a monument to the things we don't know, and a sobering reminder of our place in the cosmos. And with that, we're going to leave this quiet, desolate place and travel to a different kind of ending, a human one. We're going to explore the last days of a royal family, a family that was supposed to have been executed, but whose story has been surrounded by whispers and rumours of escape for over a century. We're going to trade the cosmic mysteries of the universe for the intimate, tragic mystery of a family that was lost to history. The immense silence of the Siberian forest, where the Tunguska event took place, is replaced by the tense quiet of a cellar in a Russian city. The year is 1918, and the air is thick with a different kind of dread. You're a spectator to the final tragic moments of a family, a former royal family. You're in Yekaterinburg, and you're about to witness the fate of Tsar Nicholas II, his wife Alexandra, and their 5 children, the Grand Duchesses Olga, Tatiana, Maria, Anastasia, and their brother, the Tsarevich Alexei. The family has been held captive for months, a pawn in the bloody, tumultuous game of the Russian Revolution. The Bolsheviks have taken control and their power is absolute. In the early morning hours of July 17th, the family is woken up and taken to a small windowless basement room in the Ipatiev house. They are told they are being moved to a safer location, but you and they know this is a lie. This is the end. A firing squad enters the room, and the verdict is read. The Tsar is shot first, and then the rest of the family is executed in a chaotic, brutal scene. The bodies are taken out, loaded onto a truck, and driven to a remote forest. The next day, the Bolsheviks announce to the world that the Tsar and his family have been executed. The dynasty that ruled Russia for over 300 years is no more. This is the mainstream historical fact of the Romanov family's final mystery. But history is rarely that simple. The story of their execution was deliberately muddled, the location of their graves kept secret, and the lack of a formal, public identification of all the bodies left the door open for rumours. And in the years that followed, the rumours began to spread. The most famous and enduring of these was that the youngest daughter, Anastasia, had somehow survived. You, like the rest of the world, are desperate to believe. The story of a young princess escaping the firing squad is so much more palatable than the reality of a brutal, cold-blooded execution. It's a story of hope, of a young life saved from a dark fate. It's a fairy tale for a world that has just gone through a world war and a revolution. In the years following the execution, a quirky tidbit of history emerges. Several women came forward claiming to be the Grand Duchess Anastasia. The most famous of these was Anna Anderson, a woman who looked a bit like Anastasia and had a physical resemblance to the Romanovs. She knew details about their lives, and she spoke with a Russian accent. She was a compelling figure, and she had her believers and her detractors. For decades the debate raged. Was she the real Anastasia? The scholarly debate on the survival of any of the Romanov children, especially Anastasia, was a huge, passionate argument for decades. Historians and scientists still argue whether the evidence presented by Anna Anderson and others was genuine or a clever fabrication. The fact is, the Romanovs' execution was not a clean, neat affair. The firing squad was incompetent, and the bullets ricocheted off the jewels and diamonds that the women had sewn into their corsets for safekeeping. The children were bayoneted and clubbed, a brutal end that would have made it very difficult to identify the bodies, and it's from this chaos that the rumours of escape were born. A light joke in all this dark history? The Romanovs, in a tragic twist of fate, were literally saved by their family jewels for a few extra moments. Their jewellery, meant to be a nest egg for their escape, only delayed the inevitable. The irony is as brutal as their deaths. The true solution to the mystery came in 1991, when the bodies of the Romanovs were finally discovered in a mass grave in the Siberian forest. The remains were carefully exhumed and subjected to modern forensic science, including DNA testing. The results were conclusive. The bodies belonged to the Tsar, the Tsarina, and 3 of their daughters. But 2 bodies were still missing, those of the Tsarevich Alexei and one of the daughters, either Maria or Anastasia. This discovery, while answering some questions, only deepened the mystery for a few years. Then, in 2007, a second grave was found nearby. This time, the remains of the 2 missing children were discovered. They were also subjected to DNA testing, and the results confirmed their identity. The DNA from both graves matched that of the current Duke of Edinburgh, Prince Philip, a great-nephew of the Tsarina Alexandra. The mystery was finally solved. All 7 of the Romanovs had been killed in that cellar in Yekaterinburg. Anna Anderson's claims were disproven by her DNA, which was tested from a lock of her hair, and it showed no connection to the Romanov family. The story of the Romanovs is a tragedy, but it's also a testament to the power of a mystery to capture the public imagination. The rumours of Anastasia's survival were a way for people to hope for a different, more gentle ending. It was a way to cling to a belief in a world where good things can still happen, even in the face of unspeakable evil. It's a sobering reminder that sometimes the most compelling stories are the ones that turn out not to be true. We've moved from the cosmic mysteries of an asteroid to the intimate tragedy of a single family. The Romanov story is a human one, filled with love, fear, and a desperate hope for survival. It's a mystery that was finally solved by the cold, hard science of DNA. But the emotional legacy of the story will last forever. And with that, we're going to leave this grim chapter of history behind. We're going to travel to a warmer, more ancient place, the high deserts of Peru. We're going to fly over a landscape that is covered in immense, intricate drawings that no one can fully understand, a silent message from a long-lost civilization that is still waiting to be read. We're trading the quiet of a final resting place for the silent, majestic, and utterly baffling Nazca lines. The final, tragic silence of the Romanov cellar gives way to the heat and the wind of a high desert plateau. You're flying in a small plane, its shadow racing across a vast, sandy expanse of land in southern Peru. The sun is blazing, and the ground below is a uniform, ochre canvas. But as you look down, you see them. Immense, intricate designs etched into the earth. Lines, some straight as an arrow and miles long, others forming incredible swirling shapes of animals and geometric patterns. These are the Nazca lines, and you're looking at a message from an ancient civilization, a message that has been waiting to be read for over 2,000 years. The Nazca lines are a series of geoglyphs, massive designs carved into the desert floor by the ancient Nazca culture. The ground here is perfect for this kind of work. The top layer of soil is a reddish brown, and just below it is a layer of lighter, chalky earth. The Nazca people simply removed the top layer of earth, revealing the lighter soil underneath, and in doing so created a contrast that is visible from a great height. The lack of rain and wind in this region has kept the lines in a state of remarkable preservation for centuries. The mainstream historical fact is that there are hundreds of these figures, ranging from simple lines and geometric shapes to complex stylized representations of animals. You see a hummingbird with a wingspan of over 300 feet, a monkey with a prehensile tail, and a spider that looks almost too perfect to be real. There are also human-like figures, including one that looks like an astronaut, which has naturally fueled a number of wild theories. The lines and figures are believed to have been created between 500 BCE and 500 CE. But the question, the one that hangs in the air like the desert heat, is why? Why did a civilization with no known flying technology spend countless hours carving these colossal figures into the earth? Figures that can only be fully appreciated from above. This is the heart of the Nazca mystery. One of the most compelling and widely accepted theories is that the Nazca lines were created for astronomical or ceremonial purposes. The long, straight lines may have pointed to the rising or setting of certain constellations or planets. The animal figures may have represented star constellations. It's a plausible theory, as many ancient cultures had a deep connection to the cosmos. The lines may have also served as a kind of calendar, helping the Nazca people track the seasons and predict planting and harvesting times. This theory fits with what we know about other ancient civilizations that built monumental structures to track the sky. Another theory, a quirky tidbit of fringe archaeology, suggests that the lines are related to water. The Nazca Desert is incredibly dry, and water would have been a precious and life-giving commodity. The theory suggests that the lines may have pointed to underground water sources, or that they were part of a ritual to appease the gods and ask for rain. This theory is supported by the fact that many of the lines seem to be connected to the Puquios, a series of ancient underground aqueducts. A light joke in all this dark history? The Nazca people may have just been the first people to draw in the sand and forget to erase it. Or perhaps they were the first artists to create a work of art that was so big it was impossible to appreciate from ground level. The great scholarly debate still argues whether the Nazca lines were created for religious purposes, as a way to communicate with their gods, or for a more practical reason, such as astronomy or agriculture. The sheer scale and number of the lines suggests a massive communal effort, a project that would have required a great deal of planning and organisation. It's a testament to the Nazca culture's ingenuity and their ability to work together on a monumental scale. Imagine being one of the Nazca people working on the desert floor. You're not just drawing. You're using simple tools and ropes to lay out the design, following instructions from a central figure, a priest or an astronomer. You're not just an artist. You're a part of something much bigger than yourself. You're creating a work of art that will outlast you, that will stand for 1,000 years. But you can't see the finished product. You can only see the lines and shapes that are directly in front of you. It's an act of faith, a leap of trust, a community project that is both a work of art and a sacred duty. The alien runway theory is another popular and highly fantastical explanation for the Nazca lines. It suggests that the long, straight lines were landing strips for alien spacecraft and the figures were messages to the extraterrestrial visitors. This theory, while a great story, has no evidence to support it. The lines are not perfectly flat and they would not be suitable for a runway. It's a fun idea, but it's a testament to the fact that when we can't understand something from the past, our imaginations often go to the stars. The Nazca lines are a silent, haunting reminder that we are not the first people to look up at the stars and wonder about our place in the universe. They are a monument to a civilization that had a deep and abiding reverence for the cosmos, a civilization that left behind a message that we are still trying to understand. We've moved from the human-scale tragedy of a royal family to the monumental cosmic mystery of a desert landscape. The Nazca lines are a testament to the fact that some of history's greatest questions are not about what happened, but about why it happened. The motivation behind these creations is a mystery that is as vast and as empty as the desert itself. And with that, we're going to leave this high-flying mystery behind and travel to an even more tantalizing and more human one. The search for the final resting place of a queen, a woman who ruled an empire and whose death marked the end of an era. We're going to search for the lost tomb of Cleopatra. The immense silent figures of the Nazca lines fade below us as we descend through the dusty air, trading the high desert of Peru for the sweltering heat of ancient Egypt. The year is 30 BCE. The city of Alexandria is a bustling hub of commerce and culture, a jewel on the Mediterranean. But a sense of doom hangs over the city. A great love affair is ending, a great empire is falling, and a great queen is about to die. You're walking the streets of this city, and you're here to witness the final days of Cleopatra VII, the last active pharaoh of Egypt. Cleopatra is a figure of legend and history, a woman whose life was a dramatic saga of power, politics, and passion. She had a tumultuous affair with Julius Caesar, and then a legendary romance with Mark Antony. She was a brilliant ruler, a polyglot who could speak 7 languages, and a master politician. But in the end, she was defeated. Octavian, the future Emperor Augustus, had defeated her and Antony in the Battle of Actium. They had retreated to Alexandria, and the city was about to fall. Antony committed suicide, and then Cleopatra, rather than be paraded through the streets of Rome as a trophy, chose to end her own life. The mainstream historical fact is that she died by suicide, most likely by the bite of a poisonous snake, an asp. The accounts of her death are dramatic and legendary, with Plutarch writing that she dressed in her finest royal garments, laid in her bed, and allowed the snake to bite her. She was a woman who lived her life as a performance, and she died in the same way, in a final act of defiance. But what happened after her death? That's where the mystery begins. Cleopatra was buried with Mark Antony, as per her dying wish. The two were entombed together in a mausoleum, a grand monument that Octavian allowed to be built for them. But where is that mausoleum? That is the great puzzle of Cleopatra's tomb. Despite centuries of searching, her final resting place has never been found. It's a mystery that has captivated archaeologists and treasure hunters for centuries, the ultimate historical prize. The search for Cleopatra's tomb is not just a search for a burial site, it's a search for a legendary part of history. The tomb would not only hold the remains of the two lovers, but also a treasure trove of artifacts, jewels, and historical documents that would give us an unprecedented glimpse into the final days of the Roman Republic and the last years of the Ptolemaic dynasty. The potential for discovery is staggering. One of the most compelling and widely accepted theories is that the tomb is located somewhere near the temple of Taposiris Magna, a site located about 30 miles west of Alexandria. This theory, championed by archaeologist Kathleen Martinez, suggests that Cleopatra's tomb is hidden in a series of underground tunnels and chambers beneath the temple. Her team has discovered a number of artifacts that point to a royal burial, including coins with Cleopatra's face on them and a beautiful, headless statue of a pharaoh. It's an intriguing lead, and Martinez has been working there for years, but the tomb has yet to be found. Another quirky tidbit, a more fringe theory, is that the tomb is actually located in Alexandria, but it has been buried under centuries of earthquakes, rising sea levels, and urban development. Alexandria is a city built on a city, built on a city. It's a literal archaeological layer cake. The ancient city is now partially submerged under the Mediterranean Sea, and it's possible that the mausoleum, along with the rest of the royal quarter, is now lost to the waves. A light joke in all this dark history? Maybe Cleopatra just decided to bury herself in a place that no one could ever find, just to mess with us. She was a master of political theatre, so a final act of historical mischief seems right up her alley. The scholarly debate still argues whether Cleopatra was buried at Taposiris Magna, in a lost part of ancient Alexandria, or in an entirely different, still unknown location. The historical records are vague, and they were often written by Octavian's men, who had a vested interest in portraying Cleopatra as a dangerous, corrupt foreign queen. The truth of her final days, and the location of her tomb, may have been deliberately obscured. Imagine the search itself. You're an archaeologist, working in the blistering Egyptian sun, digging through sand and stone hoping for a clue. You find a coin, a piece of pottery, a fragment of a statue. Each one is a breadcrumb, a small piece of the puzzle. You're not just digging for objects, you're digging for a story that has been lost for over 2,000 years. The excitement, the frustration, the constant hope that the next shovelful of dirt will reveal the greatest discovery in the history of archaeology. It's a feeling that is hard to describe. The story of Cleopatra's tomb is a perfect example of a mystery that exists not because of a lack of evidence, but because the evidence is buried, lost to time, and obscured by the passing of centuries. It's a reminder that some of history's greatest stories are not just about what happened, but about what we can find, and what we can't. And as we leave the dusty, sun-baked plains of Egypt and the tantalizing mystery of a lost tomb, we're going to travel to an even greater and more tragic loss, the loss of knowledge. We're going to sail to a time when a great library held the accumulated wisdom of the ancient world, and we're going to mourn its destruction. We're trading the search for a single tomb for the loss of 1,000,000 scrolls, and we're going to contemplate the great tragedy of the Library of Alexandria's demise. The tantalizing mystery of Cleopatra's tomb, a question of where two bodies lay, is now replaced by a far greater and more tragic puzzle. We've sailed from the shores of Alexandria to its great harbour, but we've travelled backward in time to a period when the city was the intellectual capital of the world. You're standing in the shadow of a colossal building, a temple to knowledge, a place where 1,000,000 scrolls are said to have been housed. This is the great Library of Alexandria, and its destruction is one of the most profound losses in the history of human civilization. The mainstream historical fact is that the Library of Alexandria was not just a building, it was an institution, a research centre that attracted the greatest minds of the ancient world. It was founded in the 3rd century BCE under the reign of Ptolemy the Found, a general of Alexander the Great. It was a place where scholars lived and worked, where they could study the accumulated wisdom of the known world. It was a place where Euclid wrote his Elements, a foundational text of geometry. It was a place where Eratosthenes calculated the circumference of the earth with remarkable accuracy. It was a place where the Septuagint, the first Greek translation of the Hebrew Bible, was supposedly created. The library was a place of intellectual ferment, a beacon of human ingenuity and curiosity. But today, we're not just here to marvel at its greatness, we're here to contemplate its demise. The library didn't burn down in a single catastrophic event, as the legends often suggest. Its destruction was a slow, tragic process that spanned centuries. The first major blow came in 48 BCE, during a siege by Julius Caesar. His troops set fire to the Alexandrian fleet, and the fire spread to the city's port, where a large number of scrolls were being stored. While not the complete destruction of the main library, it was a significant loss, a taste of what was to come. The second major blow came in 270 CE, when the Roman Emperor Aurelian was trying to reconquer the city from Queen Zenobia of Palmyra. The city was sacked, and a large part of it, including the area where the library was believed to be, was destroyed. But even after these events, there were still smaller libraries and a sense of intellectual life in the city. The final nail in the coffin came in 391 CE, when a Christian mob, at the behest of the Roman Emperor Theodosius I, destroyed the Serapeum, a smaller daughter library that housed a significant number of scrolls. The great scholarly debate still argues whether there was a single, main library of Alexandria, or if the term referred to a series of smaller libraries and research centres in the city. The historical accounts of its destruction are often contradictory and were written hundreds of years after the fact. Historians still argue whether the loss of the library was an act of deliberate malice, a tragic accident, or a slow, grinding decline of intellectual and political will. This is where a quirky tidbit of history comes in. The library was so massive, so full of knowledge, that scholars estimate it held anywhere from 40,000 to 400,000 scrolls. But a single scroll was a time-consuming thing to make, and it was a fragile thing to own. A single book, in our modern terms, would have been a dozen or more scrolls. This means that even at its peak, the number of books in the library was probably a fraction of what a modern library holds. But the knowledge contained within those scrolls, the original texts from the greatest minds of the ancient world, was priceless. A light joke in all this dark history? The ancient librarians of Alexandria must have had a truly terrifying late fees policy, given the value of the books. Imagine the loss. A library is not just a building full of books, it's a collective memory. It's the sum of our knowledge, our stories, our myths, and our scientific discoveries. When a library is lost, it's not just a collection of scrolls that is gone, it's a part of our shared humanity. We lost the plays of the ancient Greek playwrights, the original texts of the great philosophers, the scientific discoveries that were thousands of years ahead of their time. The loss is incalculable. It's a wound in our collective history that can never be healed. The story of the Library of Alexandria is a cautionary tale. It's a reminder that knowledge is a fragile thing, and that it can be lost not just to fire or war, but to apathy, neglect, and a lack of political will to preserve it. It's a story that resonates today, in a world where we can access information with a click of a button, but where we are also faced with the constant threat of censorship and the deliberate destruction of the knowledge. The library story is a silent one. We don't have any eyewitness accounts of its final days, no dramatic last stand of a librarian protecting his scrolls. It's a mystery that is defined by its absence. We are left to wonder what we lost, what great discoveries and stories were lost to time and fire, what questions we could have answered if we just had access to those scrolls. We've moved from the search for a physical tomb to the mourning of a lost cultural monument. The Library of Alexandria's demise is a ghost story, not of a person, but of an idea, a concept of knowledge that was so advanced it had no home in the world that followed. And as we leave the silent, empty ruins of this great library, we're going to travel to a different kind of lost civilization, one that didn't just lose its library, but its entire way of life. We're going to explore the forgotten cities of the Indus Valley civilization, a people who built sprawling, sophisticated cities and then just as mysteriously disappeared. The ghost of the Library of Alexandria, a silent testament to lost knowledge, fades into the dust of a very different and even more profound mystery. We've travelled back in time again, but this time to a civilization that didn't just lose its books, but its entire existence. You're walking among the silent, orderly streets of a city that was abandoned over 4,000 years ago. The city is Mohenjo-Daro, and it's a testament to the sophistication and then the complete disappearance of the Indus Valley civilization. The Indus Valley civilization, also known as the Harappan civilization, flourished from roughly 3,300 to 1,300 BCE in what is now modern-day Pakistan and northwest India. It was one of the world's 3 earliest urban civilizations, along with Mesopotamia and ancient Egypt. But unlike those two, the Indus Valley civilization left behind no grand monuments, no pyramids, no massive temples. What they left behind were cities, and what cities they were. The mainstream historical fact is that the cities of the Indus Valley, like Mohenjo-Daro and Harappa, were a marvel of urban planning and engineering. As you walk through the ruins, you see a grid-like street layout, a testament to a central, organised authority. The houses are made of baked bricks, all of a uniform size, and many had their own private well and bathing area. But the most impressive feature, the one that tells you the most about this civilization, is the plumbing. The cities had a sophisticated sewage system, a network of covered drains that ran under the streets, carrying waste away from the city. This level of sanitation was unprecedented for its time, and would not be seen again in a city for over 1,000 years. The society was also a peaceful one. You don't find the same level of militaristic art or weapons in the Indus Valley that you do in other ancient civilizations. There are very few signs of war or conflict. The art they left behind is beautiful, but it's small scale, like the famous bronze statuette of the Dancing Girl, a small figure that shows a people who valued art and culture. They were a people who built cities, not armies. But just like the Library of Alexandria, the Indus Valley civilization disappeared. The cities were abandoned, and the people seem to have simply vanished. This is the great puzzle of this civilization. Their decline began around 1900 BCE, and within a few hundred years their once thriving cities were empty, and their culture was gone. It's not a mystery of what happened to a single family or a single ship. It's a mystery of what happened to an entire civilization. So, what are the theories? Why did an entire civilization of well-organized, technologically advanced people simply abandon their cities? One of the most compelling and widely accepted theories is a change in the environment. The Indus River, the lifeblood of the civilization, may have changed its course. The rivers that once fed the cities may have dried up, making agriculture impossible. It's a compelling theory because a civilization is only as strong as its food supply. A dramatic change in the environment, a prolonged drought, or a change in the course of the river would have been catastrophic. A light joke in all this dark history? The Indus people may have been the first to realise that you can't build a society on an empty riverbed. They were just ahead of their time in the concept of a natural disaster. Another, more fringe theory, is that the civilization was destroyed by an invading force. In the early 20th century, the archaeologist Mortimer Wheeler discovered a number of unburied skeletons in the streets of Mohenjo-Daro and suggested that they were the victims of a massacre. He proposed that the Aryans, a group of nomadic people from Central Asia, had invaded and destroyed the civilization. but this theory has since been largely discredited. The skeletons were found in a disorganized manner, suggesting that they were not the victims of a single violent event, and there is no other evidence of a widespread invasion. The scholarly debate still argues whether the decline of the Indus Valley civilization was due to a single, catastrophic event or a slow, gradual process of environmental and social decay. The evidence points to a combination of factors. The river systems that were their lifeblood were in a constant state of flux. The cities, with their emphasis on sanitation and urban planning, may have been too rigid to adapt to these changes. It's possible that as the environment became more and more difficult to live in, the people simply migrated, leaving their grand cities behind to become a part of the great silent landscape. Imagine the final days of these cities. The once bustling streets are now quiet. The sound of children playing, the hum of a potter's wheel, the chatter of a busy marketplace, all of it is gone. The people are packing up their belongings, leaving their homes behind, not because of a war or a plague, but because the land they lived on can no longer support them. They are moving to a new, more fertile land, and in doing so they are leaving behind a part of their identity. The great orderly cities are left to the elements, their grand designs slowly succumbing to the relentless march of time. The story of the Indus Valley civilization is not just about a mystery. It's about the fragility of our own existence. It's a reminder that even the most advanced, well-organized societies can be brought to their knees by forces that are far beyond their control. It's a testament to the fact that we are all, in the end, at the mercy of the earth. We've moved from the slow, tragic loss of a civilization to the specific, tantalizing mystery of a hidden treasure. We're going to leave the silent, abandoned cities of the Indus Valley and travel to a dark, dusty cave near the Dead Sea. We're going to unroll a scroll made of copper, and we're going to read a list of a secret treasure that no one has ever been able to find. We're trading the vast existential questions of a lost civilization for the specific and possibly solvable puzzle of the copper scroll's buried treasure. The silent, abandoned cities of the Indus Valley are now behind us, and we've traded the grand existential questions of a lost civilization for a specific and tantalizing treasure hunt. We're in a dark, dusty cave near the Dead Sea, and the year is 1952. You're a part of a team of archaeologists and Bedouin treasure hunters, and you've just made a discovery that will change the world of biblical scholarship forever, the Dead Sea Scrolls. But among the hundreds of fragile leather and papyrus scrolls you've found, there's one that's different. It's not a scroll of religious text or a philosophical treatise. It's a scroll made of pure, malleable copper, and it's unlike anything you've ever seen before. It's brittle and oxidized, and you can't unroll it without it crumbling into 1,000 pieces. This, my friend, is your first look at the Copper Scroll, a historical document that is not just a mystery, but a map to a hidden treasure. The mainstream historical fact is that the Copper Scroll was found in Cave 3 at Qumran, a site on the northwestern shore of the Dead Sea. It was a part of a larger collection of scrolls that are now known as the Dead Sea Scrolls. But unlike the other scrolls, which are written in a literary style and on parchment, the Copper Scroll is a list. It's a list of 64 locations, and each location is a description of a hidden hoard of gold, silver, and other valuables. The total value of the treasure, if it exists, is estimated to be in the hundreds of millions, possibly even billions of dollars in modern currency. The scroll was too fragile to unroll, so in 1955 it was carefully cut into 23 separate strips, and the text was deciphered. The language is an unusual form of Hebrew, and the writing style is more like a personal list than a formal document. It's a quirky tidbit of history that the scroll was so unique, so strange, that for a long time scholars didn't even know what to make of it. Some thought it was a hoax, a piece of ancient fiction, or a kind of joke. But the meticulous detail of the descriptions, the use of specific locations, and the sheer amount of treasure listed make it hard to dismiss as a simple fiction. The text describes the treasure in great detail. In the ruin that is in the valley of Achor under the stone of the foundation, there are 42 talents of silver. In the great cistern that is in the court of the priests, in the corner where the steps go up, there are 4 talents of gold. The descriptions are incredibly specific, but the locations are vague. They refer to places that are either lost to time or are so generic that they could be anywhere. This is the heart of the puzzle, a map to a treasure that is impossible to follow. So who hid this treasure, and why? This is where the theories begin. One of the most popular theories, and a mainstream historical fact, is that the treasure was from the temple in Jerusalem. In 70 CE, the Romans sacked Jerusalem and destroyed the temple. It is possible that the priests of the temple, knowing that their city was about to be destroyed, gathered the temple's gold and silver and hid it in a series of caches across the land, hoping to retrieve it when the war was over. The copper scroll would be their inventory, their secret map. This theory is compelling, as it explains the immense value of the treasure and the need to keep it a secret. It's a tragic and hopeful story of a people trying to save their heritage from a brutal enemy. Another theory, a more fringe idea, is that the treasure was from a group of Essenes, a Jewish sect that lived in the area of Qumran. The Essenes were a communal ascetic group, and it's possible that they had a communal treasury that they hid before the Romans arrived. But this theory is less likely, given the immense value of the treasure described in the scroll. The Essenes, while they may have had some wealth, were not a group that would have had access to the kind of treasure described in the scroll. A light joke in all this dark history? The Essenes may have been the first people to create a treasure map, but they forgot to include a key. The great scholarly debate still argues whether the copper scroll is a real treasure map or a piece of ancient folklore. Many historians and archaeologists believe it's a real treasure map, but they also believe that the treasure has either been found by looters in the past 2,000 years, or that the locations are now so lost to time that they are impossible to find. The debate is less about the authenticity of the scroll and more about the practicality of the hunt. Imagine the treasure hunt. You have the scroll, the list of locations, and you're in the desert trying to find a cistern or a ruin that has been buried for thousands of years. The landscape has changed, the names of the locations are gone, and the clues are maddeningly vague. You're a detective of the past trying to solve a crime that was committed centuries ago, a crime of hiding a treasure that may or may not exist. The hunt is as much a part of the mystery as the treasure itself. The copper scroll is a different kind of mystery from the others we've explored. It's not a mystery of what happened, but a mystery of where something is. It's a puzzle with a clear goal, a specific list of things to find. But the puzzle is so well constructed, so well hidden by the passage of time, that it may never be solved. It's a silent challenge, a list of secrets that are just out of our reach. And as the last rays of sun hit the copper scroll, glinting off its surface, we're going to leave this tantalizing hunt behind. We're going to travel to a different kind of ancient artifact, one that is not a list of treasure, but a collection of symbols. We're going to hold a small clay disc in our hands, a disc that is covered in a beautiful but completely indecipherable language. We're trading the potential for immense wealth for the priceless and possibly unrecoverable knowledge of a lost culture, and we're going to contemplate the Phaistos disc. The unreadable map of the copper scroll, with its tantalizing promise of treasure, is replaced by a small, unassuming and equally unreadable artifact. We've travelled from the dusty caves of the Dead Sea to the ruins of a Minoan palace on the island of Crete. The year is 1908, and you're with an Italian archaeologist named Luigi Pernier, who has just discovered a small circular clay disc in the basement of a Minoan villa. It's a small object, about 6 inches in diameter, and both sides are covered in a strange spiral pattern of symbols. This is the Phaistos disc, and it's not a map to treasure. It's a window into a lost language, a silent message from a culture that has long since vanished. The mainstream historical fact is that the Phaistos disc is a relic of the Minoan civilization, a sophisticated Bronze Age culture that flourished on Crete from roughly 2700 to 1450 BCE. The disc is made of fired clay, and the symbols on it are not carved by hand, but were pressed into the soft clay with a set of stamps. This is a monumental discovery, as it predates Gutenberg's printing press by nearly 3,000 years. The use of movable type is a technological leap that we often attribute to the Renaissance, but here it is, a small, unassuming piece of evidence from the Bronze Age. The disc is not just a historical artifact, it's a testament to a level of technological innovation that we never expected to find in this time period. But the real mystery of the Phaistos disc is the language. There are 241 symbols on the disc, and they are arranged in a spiral pattern, moving from the outside of the disc to the inside. There are 45 distinct symbols, and they are all beautifully and artistically rendered. You see a man's head with a mohawk-like headdress, a cat's head, a shield, a beehive, a flower, a fish. They are small, intricate pieces of a larger puzzle, and the puzzle is that no one has ever been able to read them. The language of the Phaistos disc is unlike any other known language from that time period. The symbols are not the same as those found in the Minoan scripts of Linear A or Linear B. It's a language with no known relatives, no Rosetta Stone to help us decipher it. It's a message that is completely and utterly indecipherable, a silent cry from a long-lost culture. The quirky and fringe tidbits about the disc are as fascinating as the disc itself. Because the disc is a one-of-a-kind artifact, some scholars have suggested that it's a forgery, a clever hoax designed to fool the archaeological world. But the clay is Minoan, and the context of the discovery, in a stratified archaeological layer with other Minoan artifacts, makes this theory highly unlikely. It's a quirky thought that an archaeologist 100 years ago would have the kind of foresight to create a forgery that would stump the world for over a century. A light joke in all this dark history? The Minoans may have just been really, really bad at keeping secrets, so they had to invent a whole new language to write them down. The great scholarly debate still argues whether the Phaistos disc is a religious text, a magical incantation, a legal document, or a kind of calendar. The truth is, without a key to the language, we may never know. The lack of a decipherment is what makes the disc so compelling. It's a mystery that is defined by its silence. Imagine being one of the scribes or printers of this disc. You have a set of small clay stamps, and you're carefully pressing them into the soft clay, following a set pattern. You're creating a record of something, a text that is so important it needs to be preserved. But you know that the people who will read this text, the people who will understand this language, are a select few. You are creating a piece of history that is also a piece of a secret, and you're entrusting that secret to the earth itself. The story of the Phaistos disc is a testament to the fact that we can find the most amazing artifacts from the past, but we can't always understand them. We can hold a piece of history in our hands, but we can't always hear its story. It's a reminder that a language is more than just a collection of symbols. It's a living thing, a key to a culture's identity, its history, its hopes, and its fears. When a language is lost, a part of that culture is lost forever. We've moved from the search for a specific physical treasure to this silent, unreadable message of a lost language. The Phaistos disc is a monument to the fragility of knowledge, a small clay disc that holds a secret that may never be revealed. Its existence is a tantalizing glimpse into a world that is just out of our reach, a world that is waiting to be discovered, if only we had the key. And with that, we're going to leave the silent, unreadable language of the Minoans behind. We're going to dive into the deep, dark waters of myth and legend. We're going to search for a city that has been lost for thousands of years, a city that has become a symbol for a forgotten golden age, and a mystery that is as old as civilization itself. We're trading the physical puzzle of an artifact for the mythical and possibly unprovable existence of the lost city of Atlantis. The small, silent mystery of the Phaistos disc fades, and the rustle of its clay symbols is replaced by the roar of the ocean. We've plunged into the deep, murky waters of myth and legend, searching for a city that has captured the human imagination for thousands of years. You're no longer an archaeologist or a historian. You're a dreamer, a philosopher, a seeker of truth, trying to find the lost city of Atlantis. The story of Atlantis is not a historical fact. It's a legend that comes to us from one of the most famous and influential minds of the ancient world, the Greek philosopher Plato. The mainstream historical fact is that Plato wrote about Atlantis in two of his dialogues, the Timaeus and the Critias, around 360 BCE. According to Plato's account, Atlantis was a powerful and advanced island nation located beyond the Pillars of Hercules, which is the ancient term for the Strait of Gibraltar. The Atlanteans were a technologically advanced people, with grand canals, beautiful temples, and a powerful navy. They were a righteous and just people, but over time they became corrupted by their wealth and power. As a punishment from the gods, the island was destroyed in a single day and night of catastrophic earthquakes and floods, sinking into the ocean and vanishing forever. Plato's account is a work of philosophy, a cautionary tale about the dangers of hubris and a society that becomes too focused on material wealth and power. It was a metaphor for the Athenian Empire, which had recently been defeated in the Peloponnesian War. But over time, the story of Atlantis, a powerful and advanced civilization that was lost to the sea, became a historical fact in the minds of many people. The search for Atlantis has been going on for centuries, and it's a search that has taken us to every corner of the globe. This is where the quirky and fringe theories come in. People have claimed to find Atlantis in the Mediterranean, in the Caribbean, in the Canary Islands, and even in Antarctica. One of the more popular theories, and a light joke in this dark history, is that the story of Atlantis is a reference to the real-life volcanic eruption of Thera, a Greek island, around 1600 BCE. The eruption, which was one of the largest in human history, caused a massive tsunami that would have devastated the Minoan civilization on Crete, leading to a decline in their power and influence. It's a plausible theory, but it doesn't account for the grand scale of Plato's description. The Minoans, while advanced for their time, were not a technologically superior civilization with a global empire. Another popular theory suggests that Atlantis is located in the eye of the Rishi structure in Mauritania, a massive geological formation that looks like a bullseye from space. The Rishi structure is a fascinating place, a natural wonder of the world, but there is no archaeological evidence to suggest that it was ever the site of a great civilization. The great scholarly debate still argues whether Plato's story of Atlantis was a pure work of fiction, a philosophical allegory, or if it was inspired by a real historical event. The majority of historians and archaeologists believe it was an allegory, a piece of political and philosophical commentary. They point to the fact that Plato is the only ancient source for the story, and that no other ancient Greek historian or philosopher mentions Atlantis. The story, they argue, is a literary device, a way for Plato to make his point about the dangers of a corrupt society. But for those who believe the search continues, the story of Atlantis is not just about a lost city, it's about the search for a forgotten golden age, a time when humanity was more pure, more technologically advanced, and more in tune with the universe. It's a story that speaks to our deepest longings for a time when things were better, when we were better. Imagine the search. You're a modern-day treasure hunter, a Jacques Cousteau of the mind, diving into the depths of history and myth. You're not just looking for a city, you're looking for a truth, a story that could rewrite the history of our world. You're sifting through ancient texts, reading between the lines of philosophy and poetry, trying to find a kernel of truth in a sea of fiction. You're a detective of the impossible, a believer in a story that everyone else has dismissed as a myth. The myth of Atlantis is not just about a city that sank, it's about the very human need to believe in something more. It's a story that gives us hope, a story that tells us that a great civilization can rise and fall, and that even in its destruction, it can leave behind a legacy that lasts for thousands of years. It's a reminder that even our myths and legends can teach us something about ourselves, about our hopes, our fears, and our deepest desires. We've moved from the silence of a lost artifact to the roaring silence of a lost city. The story of Atlantis is a mystery that exists not in a physical place, but in the pages of a book, in the minds of 1 billion people. It's a mystery that will likely never be solved, but its search will continue, because the search for Atlantis is, in the end, the search for ourselves. And with that, we're going to leave the mythical waters of Atlantis behind. We're going to return to the modern world, to a mystery that is far more recent and far more human. We're going to explore the disappearance of a man who was as powerful as any king, a man who had a hand in every part of American life, and a man who simply vanished one day, leaving behind a legacy of power, crime, and a puzzle that has haunted the world for over 50 years. We're going to trade the myth of a lost city for the very real and very chilling mystery of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance. The mythical grandeur of Atlantis, a mystery as old as time, is now replaced by the gritty, human-scale intrigue of a modern disappearance. We've moved from the philosophical pages of Plato to the concrete and steel jungle of 1970s America. You're driving down a street in suburban Detroit, the air thick with the humid heat of a Michigan summer. The year is 1975. You're here to meet a man who was once one of the most powerful people in America, a man whose name was synonymous with organised labour and organised crime. You're here to meet Jimmy Hoffa. The mainstream historical fact is that Jimmy Hoffa was the president of the International Brotherhood of Teamsters, a union that at its peak had over 2 million members. Hoffa was a polarising figure, a man loved by his members for his negotiating skills and his ability to win them better contracts, and a man hated by the government and his enemies for his alleged connections to the mafia. He was convicted of jury tampering, fraud, and bribery in the 1960s, and served a few years in prison before being pardoned by President Richard Nixon. He was trying to regain control of the Teamsters Union, and he was a major threat to the new leadership and to his former allies in the mob. On July 30th, 1975, Jimmy Hoffa was supposed to have a meeting with two powerful mob figures, Anthony Tony Pro Provenzano and Anthony Tony Jack Giacalone, at the Matchus Red Fox restaurant in Bloomfield Township, Michigan. He was seen standing in the parking lot of the restaurant waiting for his ride. A few minutes later, he called his wife and told her he was stood up. That was the last anyone ever heard from him. He simply vanished, leaving behind his car, his coat, and a mystery that has haunted the American imagination for over 50 years. The disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa is not a historical fact that is up for debate. It's a fact that he was at that restaurant, and a fact that he was never seen again. But what happened to him? That's the great unsolved puzzle. The FBI launched a massive investigation, a hunt that would span decades, but they never found a single trace of him. No body, no clothing, no car, nothing. The most plausible theory, and the one most widely accepted by law enforcement and historians, is that Hoffa was murdered by the mafia. He was a threat to their control of the Teamsters pension fund, a fund that they had been looting for years. He was trying to get back into power, and he was threatening to expose them. They had to get rid of him. The two men he was supposed to meet with, Tony Pro and Tony Jack, were two of the most powerful mob figures in the country. It's not a coincidence that he disappeared on the day he was supposed to meet with them. The quirky and fringe tidbits of the Hoffa mystery are as legendary as the man himself. There are countless theories about where he was buried. A light joke in all this dark history? The most famous theory, that he was buried under the end zone of Giants Stadium in East Rutherford, New Jersey, is a classic. It's a great piece of folklore, but it's almost certainly not true. The stadium was built in 1976, a year after Hoffa's disappearance, and the ground was made of loose fill and was not a solid foundation. Another theory, one that sounds like it came straight out of a mob movie, is that he was ground up and put in a barrel of oil, which was then buried in a landfill. The FBI has investigated many of these claims, and they have all come up empty. The great scholarly debate still argues whether the disappearance of Jimmy Hoffa was ordered by a single mob boss, or if it was a coordinated effort by a number of powerful figures. It's also a debate about the role of the government in his disappearance. There are some who believe that the government, particularly the FBI and the Department of Justice, may have had a hand in it. They had a long history of trying to take Hoffa down, and his disappearance would have been a convenient way to get rid of a man who was a thorn in their side for decades. But there is no evidence to support this theory, and it remains a fringe idea. Imagine the final moments of Jimmy Hoffa's life. He's standing in a parking lot, a man who has fought his whole life, a man who has stared down presidents and mob bosses. He's waiting for a meeting, and he's completely unaware that he's walking into a trap. His allies, the people he trusted, are about to betray him. He's about to be killed, and his body will be disposed of in a way that it will never be found. It's a chilling thought, a reminder that in the world of power and crime, there are no friends, only allies, and that a man who lives by the sword can also die by it. The mystery of Jimmy Hoffa's disappearance is not just a historical puzzle, it's a cultural one. It's a symbol of the dark side of the American dream, a story about a man who rose from nothing to the heights of power, only to be swallowed whole by the very forces that he had helped to create. It's a story that has been told and retold, twisted and exaggerated for over 50 years, and still we have no answer. The search for Hoffa has become a kind of ghost story, a modern-day legend that we tell ourselves to remind us of the fragility of power and the dark underbelly of the American experience. He is a ghost that haunts the nation, a silent reminder that some mysteries are not meant to be solved, and that some people are just meant to disappear. The journey ends here, and the ghosts of our shared past are settling in for the long night. You've walked with a missing colony, peered into a silent book, and searched for a lost queen. The questions we've explored are a testament to the fact that for all our knowledge and all our technology, there are still parts of history that remain stubbornly out of our reach. It's a humbling thought, isn't it? The world is a vast, mysterious place, and some of its greatest stories are not in the books we read, but in the questions we can't answer. The quiet hum of your fan is a gentle reminder of the world we live in, a world where the mysteries of the past are always just a thought away. Now, Let your mind drift from the unsolved puzzles and the haunting questions. Let the stories fade and let the long, peaceful night take over. The silence is not an absence. It's a promise of rest. The answers can wait for another night, for another journey. For now, it's time to sleep.